Knight is remembered as a patient master, one that allows hope to rise before quietly drawing it back down again. The Blood Angels struggled against what had been written into their very genes. They defied the role chosen for them and dared to believe they could rise above the shadow that followed them. From the worst of mankind, they shaped something bright and steadfast. They stood beside the fledgling Imperium like guardian angels, living up to the name they carried. Yet within their triumphs lay the seeds of ruin, nurtured by the jealousy of the fallen War Master Horus, who saw in them a reflection of what he himself had cast aside. When the first stroke of the Horus Heresy fell, it brought the Legion to its knees. Tragedy followed, and their resolve was broken again and again. Still, the nature of the Ninth was not to surrender to despair. They rose each time, even as loss hollowed them. One cannot help but wonder what Sanguinius and his sons might have achieved had treachery and flawed genetics not weighed upon them. Whatever future might have bloomed from blood and hardship was lost in that civil war. What remained was endurance and a proud, stubborn will to carry on as their noble line slowly faded. In the tales of the Unification Wars, the Ninth is seldom praised. Other legions were blooded in Albia, Indonesia, and Frank, fighting beside the Thunder Warriors in battles sung of with pride. The Ninth was absent from such glory. Their role was different, necessary, and unsightly. They were not sent to conquer in the open light. Instead, they were unleashed upon the poisoned reaches of Terra, into rat zones and gem-scarred wastelands where only twisted remnants of humanity endured. There, far from the spotlight of history, they held the line while the Emperor secured his grand victories. Even in those early days, they were numerous. Where other legions chose only the strongest recruits, the Ninth cast their net wide, drawing in the broken and dispossessed. From irradiated tribes and hunted outcasts, they forged warriors tall and fair, stern in bearing despite the horrors from which they had been taken. The transformation was harsh. Many perished beneath the apothecary's blades, yet those who survived bore within them a darker gift. After battle, they walked the fields once more, seeking the fallen. Flesh and blood were consumed, not from cruelty alone, but to claim knowledge and skill through the Homophagia implant. In this way, they learned swiftly, even in isolation. Among the mortal armies, they gained a name spoken in uneasy tones, the Eaters of the Dead. They had been created to fight monsters in the darkest places, yet in doing so, they risked becoming something just as feared. As the wars of unification spread into the Sol system, the Ninth moved with them, yet not toward the shining prizes of Saturn or Mars. Instead, they were cast outward to the artificial moons of Neptune, into tunnels and darkness where Xenos raiders and debased colonists lurked. 12,000 veterans vanished there, and for a long while, no word returned. Many believed them dead. When the Emperor finally turned his gaze back to Neptune, he found them not extinguished but strengthened, their ranks replenished from the barely human remnants of that distant world. They fought as line infantry meant for brutal close assault. Their charges were sudden and overwhelming. They painted their storm gray armor with charnel symbols and often went unhelmed so the sight of blood-streaked angelic faces might unsettle their foes. In battle, they embraced the legend that had grown around them. Again and again, they were sent where survival seemed impossible. In the silent void of the Kuiper Belt and the wastes of rust, they endured. Malcador the Sigillite took note and named them the Revenant Legion, for they seemed to rise anew after each ruin. They were not celebrated as others were. They were a weapon to be drawn only when needed, then hidden away. Yet it was their grim labor that secured the Imperium's first fragile foundations. Across many campaigns, the same names appeared in the rolls of honor. Historians later wove these records into legends of long-lived heroes. The truth was stranger and far less comforting. In the harshest theaters of war, necessity shaped the Legion's customs. When captains fell, their followers consumed them, preserving hard-won skill and memory. Recruits took the names of those whose strength they absorbed, and lieutenants assumed the titles of their commanders. So it seemed that certain figures endured through the decades. Isidore Osuros was believed to have led the Legion from Unity until the rediscovery of Baal, yet that name died many times, carried forward by others who bore it in turn. This ritual bound the Legion together. It also deepened the divide between them and their allies. What they called honor others saw as barbarism. Still, the Ninth endured, their immortality quiet and unsettling. When the Great Crusade pushed into wilderness space, there were worlds that strained the sanity of mortal men. Ki Burin was one such place, a wasteland of irradiated sands and cannibal tribes ruled by the warlord Eglobia. Imperial regiments vanished there, swallowed by mutant hordes. 3 companies of the Ninth were sent to aid the stranded Veredan regulars. Drop pods fell through black smoke, and the Legion carved a path through the throng with cold precisions. At first, resistance was scattered. Then it became a tide. Mutants capable of rending ceramite surged in endless numbers. When the Legion pressed toward the warlord's banners, sorcerous horrors tore at reality itself. Losses mounted, and nearly 2 companies were destroyed. Those who survived withdrew without hesitation. Reformed and diminished, they chose a slower war. Raids replaced open battle. They bled the tribes over many years, rebuilding their strength from the very world that sought to consume them. In desperation, they pressed mutants into service and turned to cannibal practices to survive and deny the foe. The campaign stretched on for 12 long years, remembered later as the Banquet of Ki Burin. Among mortal soldiers, a darker name spread in whispers, the Charnel Feast. In the final year, Eclobia's fortress stood surrounded. His sorcerers were slain, and his armies starved. When he fled in a crude spacecraft, he rose only to meet Imperial cruisers bearing the heraldry of the 7th Legion. His life ended beneath their guns. Rogaldorn arrived expecting compliance. Instead, he found a world reduced to ruin by the Imperium's own hand. The report of the Ninth stirred his wrath. He saw monstrous acts, yet also the ruthless capability of warriors who had endured alone. He reprimanded them and ordered the city of Burin burned, its memory erased before any remembrancer could set it into record. Thus ended the Charnel Feast, buried beneath ash and silence. With each campaign, the Legion's dark reputation deepened. They were sent to the wild edges of the Crusade, where death clung to them like a shroud. They fought with cold fury and did not relent until the enemy lay destroyed. Mercy was seldom their concern. Without a Primarch to guide them, they drifted into isolation. Charnel cults and bloody prophets took root within their ranks. Victories brought fear rather than gratitude, and conquered worlds sometimes worshipped them as red angels. Incidents multiplied. During the Second Siege of Irant, their 14th Company was sanctioned for killing and consuming prisoners upon the walls. Reports from the retreat at Shadim claimed wounded soldiers of the Malagan Rifles Regiment had been drained of blood rather than abandoned. Supplies grew scarce as distrust deepened. They fought in scattered companies, clinging to pride even as disrepute closed around them. A reckoning approached. They would either be remade or erased from history. It was then that a scout flotilla found a world of deserts and ruins called Baal. When the Primarchs were carried through the warp, Sanguinius came to rest upon Baal Secundus. The moon was scarred by radiation and ancient folly, inhabited by feral tribes who survived upon plunder and hardship. His earliest days in the desert remain unspoken. He endured the poisoned air and slew creatures that others feared. When tribesmen found him, white wings rose from his back, and many would have killed him as a mutant. Compassion stayed their hands. Among the people of the blood, he grew swiftly. He learned their ways, surpassed their warriors, and once slew a giant fire scorpion with his bare hands. When anger seized him in defense of his tribe, a nimbus of light crowned his head. As he matured, his wings bore him upon the desert winds. He gathered warriors not through conquest, but through hope. Under his guidance, the mutant tide receded, and for a time, Baal Secundus knew respite. He became master of his world by acclamation, a winged guardian in a land of ash. Baal was long thought barren and without worth. Yet in the year 843 of the 30th millennium, the Emperor came there and found his lost son. Sanguinius had foreseen his arrival. He met his father alone, kneeling in the dust, asking only that his people be spared. The Emperor saw loyalty and rare promise in the winged Primarch and granted his wish. The Imperial truth was withheld from Baal. No void ship would descend upon its second moon without Sanguinius's leave. The people of the blood would remain as they were, a quiet surety to bind the pact. And so Sanguinius departed, leaving the deserts of his youth to take his place beside the Emperor, while far away the fate of the Ninth awaited its turning. Sanguinius first learned the ways of war at the side of Horus, moving among the Luna wolves and watching how war was waged among the stars, he came to understand the vast machinery of the Imperium his father was building, and in those early days a bond of trust grew between the two brothers. While he stood beside Horus, the scattered warriors of the Ninth Legion were summoned home. They were gathered from distant war zones recalled over many solar months. It took 2 standard years and 4 solar months before the Legion was whole again. On the storm-racked world of Teghar Campaign, they assembled, grim killers with the faces of angels waiting for slaughter. Stormbird transports marked with the sigil of the Luna Wolves descended through the rain. Warriors in white disembarked, and at their head stood not Horus, but another son of the Emperor. Great white wings unfolded, and Sanguinius revealed himself to his Gene sons. He looked upon them and saw scars of unrelenting battle, etched not only into flesh, but into spirit. He did not demand their loyalty. In the cold rain, he knelt before them and offered his own. These warriors, long mistrusted and scorned, were given a Primarch's allegiance freely. He sealed that pledge not with words, but with action, standing at the front lines in their first campaign together. On Teghar Campaign, he shed his own blood in the maelstrom of combat. There he felt the bloodlust that ran through his legion and recognized it as his own darkness. The abhuman hordes and their bestial thralls fell before the Ninth like wheat before a scythe. Sanguinius claimed the pelt of a dire Carnodon as a trophy, a symbol of the pact forged in battle. In the gore-spattered aftermath, he saw a possible future, crimson and endless, where his sons would become monsters ruled by fury. Yet he did not despair. Even in the heat of slaughter, there remained a spark of nobility within them. They fought not only for blood, but for victory, and they held to their codes of honor with iron will. He declared that though darkness hung over them, they were angels yet, angels of blood. With those words, the Revenant Legion was reborn and took a new name, the Blood Angels. The newly named Blood Angels did not return at once to Baal. That harsh world had little left to teach them. Instead, Sanguinius sought the guidance of Horus, his mentor and friend. He divided the Legion and set each company to fight beside a company of the Luna Wolves. For a solar decade, they campaigned together, from wars of extermination to quiet strikes that faded into shadow. In the presence of those renowned warriors, the once outcast Ninth gained stature and learned restraint. Each campaign was a careful trial. During the year-long siege of Annex 12, they stood shoulder to shoulder with the Imperial Fists against the endless tide of Herod, learning brotherhood in the press of siege. On Cambriol and Prealt, they crossed blades with Eldari Reavers and were taught discipline. On Kentaris Beta, they followed Sanguinius in a bloodless pacification and learned something of mercy. Slowly, the stigma of their past loosened its grip. Fury was tempered with wisdom, and blood hunger was chained with discipline. When they finally came to Baal, they were no longer the rough beast that had stalked Terra. There on the sands, they met the newly raised warriors drawn from the blood, the native people of that system whom Sanguinius had trained himself. Terran and Baalite were mingled across the companies so that each might strengthen the other. the hunger did not vanish. It lingered like a shackled beast at the edge of madness. Those who succumbed were quietly concealed, granted the Emperor's peace, or sealed away on Baalhead. Yet the Legion as a whole honed mind and will, studying wisdom as well as war. They became scholars as well as warriors. Their shock assaults remained fierce, but now they fell from the sky like a rain of fire, guided by a Primarch's will. They mastered feigned retreats and gun lines alongside sudden onslaughts. In time, the old blood hunger became little more than a whispered legend. Under Sanguinius, they stood as equals among the legions, their crimson armor a symbol of discipline bound to fire. Anahktor no longer appears on Imperial maps. Its name survives only in hidden archives and in the memory of the Blood Angels. It is remembered as a lesson in rage and shame. The system had endured Old Night by raiding its neighbors, surviving on plunder and slaves. When Imperial scouts arrived, they were met with fire. Sanguinius diverted his fleet at once. With 12 companies at his back, he broke the enemy Void Navy in a short and brutal engagement. The Legion descended upon the outer worlds. On Anahktor Extremis, beneath a cracked and airless surface, they fought the warriors called the Iron Bulls, heavily augmented soldiers who resisted for 6 solar hours in the tunnels below. Across the system, the same story unfolded. The foe fought with courage, staging ambushes and sacrificing themselves to slow the advance. On Anahktor Median, they battled across shallow, acidic seas and rocky archipelagos, the Iron Bulls riding augmetic frames into combat. Sanguinius even called a 6-hour ceasefire to honor their valor, hoping their leaders would bow to the Emperor. Instead, treachery came under a flag of truce. Transport barges approached the Red Tier bearing gifts, then erupted in flame. 132 Blood Angels died in the explosion. Cruisers were crippled, and one was left gutted and abandoned. Sanguinius cast aside restraint and declared the day of revelation. The inner system burned beneath nuclear fire. Outposts were reduced to ash. When they reached Anahktor Centralis, the Blood Angels fell from the sky, led by the silver-masked Heirloom, the Order of the Angel's Tears. What followed was no longer a battle, but a massacre. The Legion brought forth phosphex and rad weapons rarely sanctioned by their Primarch. Cities became charnel fields. Fortresses were blackened wounds. Anahktor was not conquered, but ruined, its survivors taken as serfs. The last of the Iron Bulls fell at the hand of Sanguinius. With a small cadre of his Sanguinius guard, he cut his way into the palace of Anahktor's ruler. Horned exoskeletal suits barred his path, but he moved through them with terrible grace. White wings spattered in blood carried him above the ungainly engines. He cleaved them apart or hurled them down to shatter. The throne room lay ahead. There he dragged the trembling lord from his seat and forced him to witness the ruin of his kingdom. In that silent moment, the price of treachery was laid bare. At the height of the Great Crusade, countless worlds were brought into the Imperium. Among the legions, the Blood Angels shone brightly. Their speed and the spectacle of their assaults made them favored subjects of the Remembrancers. They were sent against the darkest foes and to liberate the enslaved. To those they freed, they seemed true angels descending from the heavens. Among their brother legions, they earned acclaim for skill at arms and magnanimity, yet much of their renown came from Sanguinius himself. He was admired among the Primarchs, meeting each brother with warmth. Even Angren's rage was calmed in his presence. Only Horus was held in greater respect, though he remained more aloof. Sanguinius moved easily among distant courts and Mechanicum realms. He embodied the pride of those golden years. During the Olenor Crusade, though he was not present at the fighting, many believed he was worthy of the rank of War Master. It was the apex of glory for the Blood Angels and their sire, a peak from which their fall would one day shake the Imperium. The dream of unity shattered when Horus fell to the Chaos Gods. Though he had once stood closest to Sanguinius, he believed the angel would never betray their father, so he devised a plan to sway or destroy the Blood Angels. Long before, on Melchior, Horus had witnessed Sanguinius slay one of his own sons. The Primarch revealed a hidden flaw within his genome, later known as the Red Thirst. Only a few among the Legion knew the full truth. Horus promised silence and help, and Sanguinius trusted him. Years later, as War Master, Horus ordered the Legion to the Cygnus Cluster, claiming he could free them from the flaw. Trusting his brother, Sanguinius obeyed. The cluster had become a realm of chaos ruled by Kyrus the Perverse. The Blood Angels were ambushed on arrival. Demonic forces crippled their fleet. Sanguinius was taunted by the Greater Daemon, yet he answered with assault. On Cygnus Prime, he faced Kabanda, a Greater Daemon of Khorne. The demon slew 500 of his sons with a single blow. The shock drove Sanguinius into unconsciousness, and his legion into a black rage. In their fury, they shattered the demonic host. Librarians defied edicts to heal their Primarch. Once risen, Sanguinius defeated Kabanda and banished Kyrus. Yet a shadow lingered within the Legion, a curse that would later be called the Black Rage. Attempting to reach Terra, they instead followed the beacon of the Pharaohs to Sotha, arriving in Ultramar. There they were welcomed by Robut Gilliman, and in the isolation of the ruin storm, the foundation of Imperium Secundus was declared. Within Imperium Secundus, Sanguinius was proclaimed rightful heir. Lion L. Johnson was named Lord Protector, yet Conrad Kersey escaped captivity and spread terror across Mogrog. Gilliman and the Lion pursued him, clashing over policy and punishment. In time, the Lion cornered Kersey and broke his spine, bringing him before Sanguinius and Gilliman for judgment. The Night Lord's Primarch defended his actions as fate. Accusations and anger divided the brothers. The Lion was banished, yet later returned to halt Kersey's execution, arguing that the Emperor still lived. Sanguinius understood, for he too bore visions of his own death. As the wider war raged, Sanguinius assumed command of loyal forces. The rivalry with the World Eaters turned to enmity. At last, the traitor host reached Terra, and the Blood Angels stood at the siege of Terra. They defended the walls with unyielding fervor. 3 times the enemy gained footholds, and 3 times they were cast down. At the Eternity Gate, Sanguinius held the line until the wounded were carried within. There he faced Kabanda once more and broke the demon's back before the gate closed. When Horus dropped the shields of the vengeful spirit, Sanguinius joined the Emperor in a teleport assault. Scattered through the demon-haunted vessel, he was brought before his fallen brother. Horus offered power in exchange for betrayal. Sanguinius refused. They fought upon the command deck, and though weary and wounded, the angel matched the War Master's fury. At last, Horus unleashed psychic force beyond endurance. Sanguinius was slain in agony, and that psychic echo scarred his sons forever. When the Emperor entered the sanctum, he found Horus standing over the broken body of the angel. In the battle that followed, Horus was destroyed, though the Emperor was mortally wounded. It is said that the blade of Sanguinius had opened a flaw in Horus's armor, without which the Emperor might not have prevailed. For this reason, the Blood Angels remember him as the greatest of the Primarchs. The Imperium was changed forever after the defeat of Horus. The Emperor no longer walked among his sons in war. His broken body endured only through the life-sustaining machinery of the Golden Throne, and the burden of rebuilding his realm fell to the surviving Primarchs. Rogal Dorn stood firm. Robut Gilliman moved with quiet resolve. It was Gilliman who shaped what came next for the Blood Angels. Through the Codex Astartes, he ordered that the great legions be divided into smaller chapters, each one 1,000 warriors strong, each one autonomous. No single man would ever again command the full destructive might of a legion. Some of his brothers resisted, wounded by the loss and suspicious of judgment. Emotions were raw. The memory of betrayal lingered. For a time it seemed that this decree might spark yet another civil war. Yet one by one they relented. The Legiones Astartes faded into history, and in their place rose the chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. For the Blood Angels, this was a second grief laid upon an open wound. Their father, Sanguinius, had fallen at Horus's hand in the final moments of the heresy. They had scarcely begun to mourn him when they were told their brotherhood must be divided. As they struggled to recover from the siege of Terra, the first true signs of their flaw began to surface. The battles at Cygnus Prime against the demons of Khorne and Slaanesh had awakened something dark within them. The shock of their Primarch's death gave it shape. The red thirst stirred in their blood, and the curse that would be called the Black Rage took hold of their souls. Though the heresy had ended, their greatest trial had only just begun. From sorrow came renewal. This era would be known as the Second Founding. Guided by Ascalon, the sole survivor of the Sanguinary Guard, the remnants of the Legion formed new chapters. Each carried forward the rites and traditions of Sanguinius, shaping them into new identities while honoring the old. Among them stood Nasir Amit, called the Flesh Terror. His chapter took to the stars in a relentless crusade, seeking out the remnants of the traitor legions. Even in those earliest years, their reputation was written in blood. As the millennia passed, more chapters were raised from the gene stock of the Blood Angels. Each bore the legacy of Sanguinius in its own way. Some, like the Angels in Carmine, built reputations of unquestioned honor. Others drifted far from their origins. The Carmine Blades even passed for sons of the Ultramarines for a time, until a meeting with Astorath the Grim revealed the truth. At last, they understood the strange afflictions they had hidden. They could name the Red Thirst. They could name the Black Rage. And so the sons of Sanguinius endured, divided in form yet bound by blood and memory. The sons of Sanguinius have long gathered in solemn council when matters of great weight arise. In such moments, the voice of the Blood Angel's chapter master is usually heeded above all others, though there have been rare times when another has carried senior authority. When Lord Commander Kala-El fell to the Black Rage, it was the Angel Sanguine and the Angels Vermilion who stepped forward together, guiding their brethren through the storm of Wage Vangrod, the incursion of Silas Gorhend, and the latter days of the Nova Terra Interregnum. From such cooperation grew a habit of unity that would endure across centuries. On Hell's Hollow, the Angels in Carmine, the Blood Drinkers, and the Blood Angels fought side by side against a vast chaos uprising and the demonic tide that followed. Later, on the maiden world of Kalaeth, warriors of the Knights of Blood and the Flesh Terrors drove back a great Eldari host. During the wars for Armageddon, the Blood Angels and their successors stood with other Imperial armies, defending against countless orcs and lending strength where it was most needed. When Goskul Mug Uruk Thraka's forces descended upon Armageddon, Lord Commander Dante's renown was such that Tushan and Marnius Calgar entrusted overall command of the Space Marine strike force to him. The Blood Angels bore the fiercest fighting, and in a massed drop pod assault, they struck deep into the orc horde, breaking its back through close and brutal combat. Far from such vast battlefields, the life of Raffen began upon Baal Secundus. Son of a tribal chieftain and brother to Archeo, he entered the blood trials, seeking to become a neophyte. He failed a simple task set by Sergeant Chorus and walked into the desert in quiet despair. Fate turned in the storm. The Thunderhawk carrying Chorus and the chosen aspirants crashed near him. Raffen fought beside the wounded Space Marine against the deadly wildlife drawn to the wreckage. Because of losses in the crash, a place was found for him after all. Raffen rose swiftly within the chapter, becoming a sergeant and earning distinction in grave events. When Archeo appeared to be the reborn Sanguinius, it was revealed to be a plot by the Inquisitor Remius Stelli, who had fallen to Cinch. Archeo had been mutated by the power of a Lord of Change, meant to corrupt the Blood Angels from within. On the shrine world of Sabian, Raffen was forced to slay his own brother, saving the chapter from damnation. He later defended Baal against the schemes of Fabius Bile, the renegade apothecary of the Emperor's children. After Bile stole a phial of Sanguinius's blood during a conclave of the Sanguinary Brotherhood, Dante sent Raffin to recover it and to deliver judgment. Aboard the strike cruiser Tycho, Raffin pursued Baal and joined forces with his blood cousin, Nox of the Flesh Tearers. Their hunt led them to the Archaea Horde and to the renegade Magos Mat Hun Zelek, who had dealt with Baal under the false identity of Haran Serpens. Amid servitors and Skitari, they shattered Zelek's trophies and forced his surrender. There, Raffin claimed a plasma pistol, once borne by Arion, a hero of old. Their path next led to Dynacus V, a world scarred by Tyranid attack, yet still holding feral horrors beneath its waters. In a submersible descent, they faced monstrous creatures like Kraken. Raffin was captured and brought before Baile, implanted with a creature that bound his body. The primogenitor boasted of plans to clone the Emperor himself. Even wounded, Raffin tore out Baal's neck. But death did not end Baal. Clones stood in his place, and only later was the truth revealed. The real Fabius Baal was elsewhere. Amid a deadly arena and an uprising among captives, Raffin destroyed a captive zoanthrope that powered Baal's warpcraft, and with the stolen vial of Sanguinius' blood coursing through him, he defeated the last clone before escaping as Dynacus V burned. Even as these events unfolded, war pressed on other fronts. During the Third War for Armageddon, Captain Erasmus Tycho led the Third Company to defend the Hive World. There he fell to the Black Rage and met his end upon the walls of Hive Tempestora, fighting as part of the Death Company. Brother Captain Makavi took command in his stead. Soon after, a tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan turned toward Baal. The shield worlds of the Cryptus system, once a bulwark against the Great Devourer, had collapsed. At the same time, the bloodthirster Kobanda led a demon host against Ammonai in the Baal system. Facing war on two fronts, Dante called upon the Sanguinary Brotherhood. Successor chapters answered, even the Knights of Blood, who had long been declared excommunicate. Together they prepared for a trial not seen since the Heresy. On the shield worlds of Cryptus, Dante and his brothers battled the cryptoid tendril, halting its advance though at great cost. As they hastened through the warp to reinforce Baal, word came from Astorath the Grim. Chaos forces threatened the Diamor system, a move that could weaken the Cadian Gate before Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade. With reluctance, Dante divided his strength. Much of his force turned toward Diamor, while he pressed on toward Baal with only an honor guard. The Blood Angels would not abandon either duty. Even stretched thin across Armageddon, the Eye of Terror and the eastern fringes, they fought on, resolute and unyielding. The Blood Angels arrived in the Diamor system as if drawn by unseen design. First Captain Garlane and the warriors of the First and Second Companies translated into real space, almost alongside Astorath's Fifth. The timing spared them from ruin. A psychic storm engulfed the Fifth Company's ships. It struck at their curse and unleashed the Black Rage across nearly the entire company. Only Astorath, Chaplain Da'anar, their fellow chaplains and librarians endured untouched. Within the vessels, madness reigned. Karlan sent sanguinary guard and chaplains to restore order, and once control was secured, the Blood Angels launched their assault. On the world of Amethel, Crimson Slaughter warbands entrenched themselves at Mechanicus hubs, naming their war zones carnage, cruelty, hatred, malice, and perdition. At Hub Beta Secundus, the Death Company descended in 2 waves. Da Enar led his brothers into the heart of the complex, while Astarath and Lamardes encircled the outer defenses. The traitors were crushed against the lines they had overrun. Mutation and warp fire consumed many of them, as the Death Company fought with relentless fury. Yet this was only the beginning. The sorcerer Sorphas of the Black Legion had planned further. A World Eater's murder fleet arrived, led by Karn the Betrayer and his butcher horde. Dreadclaws rained down, and the clash between Coordinate Berserkers and the Death Company shook the ground. Karn himself carved through Imperial ranks until an ambush by a Reaver-class Titan of the Legio Metallica forced the tide to shift. Titans strode into battle, but the Blood Angels were terribly outnumbered. Over 9/10 of the Death Company fell before the Titans could drive the foe back. As the war widened, demon engines poured from Eileen. The arithmetic of war favored chaos. Then, in the darkest hour, a golden light fell from storm-racked skies. The Sanguinor descended, rallying the sons of Sanguinius. With his aid, the Hex Infernium was destroyed, cutting off the flow of demon engines. Yet even in apparent victory, Sorphas continued his ritual, seeking to awaken the Banshee Stone and drown the system in a tide of daemons. The Black Legion struck with full force at Hub Beta Secundus, seeking the ancient prize buried beneath Amethel. Imperial armies advanced through fire and bombardment, warships dueling high above as knights fell and titans endured land strikes. Deep below lay the Banshee Stone, a device vast beyond reckoning, forged in ages before Terra knew life. It was a cage for warp entities filled with howling demons. Sorphas intended to shatter it and tear open reality itself. Though the Blood Angels pressed hard, they sensed they had been drawn too late. Within the excavation pit, they beheld the crystal heart of the artifact, blood seeping through cracked stone. The ritual faltered, yet the wards were grievously damaged. Sorphas ordered retreat. He and his cabal vanished in a blaze of warp light, leaving the Imperium to contend with the aftermath. On the surface, battle raged until the last traitor fell. Librarian Asmasiel and his brethren silenced the stone's dreadful lament. Then came the blast wave. Firestorms consumed Amethel, reducing Chaos Industry to blackened ash. Victory was claimed, yet Asmasiel knew the damage to the Banshee Stone ran deeper than first believed. Cracks spread unseen, the prison weakened. As the Blood Angels departed for Baal, Asmasiel and a squad of scouts remained behind, standing silent watch over a cage that might yet break. After the shield worlds of the Cryptus system were sacrificed, High Fleet Leviathan descended upon Baal in terrible strength. Its mass blotted out the stars. Dante strengthened every defense and sent out countless strike forces to harry the swarm. Many splinter fleets were destroyed, yet still the tide advanced. Successor chapters answered his call. The flesh terrors arrived first. Even the Knights of Blood came to stand beside their progenitors. Wave after wave was driven back, each greater than the last. Chapter masters fell in bitter fighting, and the moons of Baal were stripped of life. At last, the remaining warriors withdrew to the ruins of their fortress monastery, preparing for a final stand. Then the great rift tore open the galaxy. Etheric storms lashed the system. The Tyranid fleet vanished from the skies. On Baal, the swarm still threatened to overwhelm them. As the final perimeter broke, the stars reappeared. A new fleet had come. Robut Gilliman arrived with the Indomitus Crusade, and after fierce battles, the Xenos were purged. Upon Baal Prime, a grim sign remained. Xenos skulls were stacked in the 8-pillared mark of Kabanda, hinting at unseen forces in the void. With Gilliman came Archmagos Belisarius' call and a final gift. From the hibernation chambers of the Zarquazitor emerged hundreds of Primaris space marines, clad in the colors of the Blood Angels and their successors. They joined the last battles against Leviathan and replenished ranks thinned by war. Gaul offered not only warriors, but the means to create more. The sons of Sanguinius accepted with gratitude. Dante had never expected to see a Primarch return, yet he knelt before Gilliman when Gilliman named him regent of the Imperium Nihilus. The weight of fate settled upon his shoulders. The Great Rift has cast a vast shadow across the Imperium. With new purpose and strengthened by Primaris brothers, the Blood Angels stand against that darkness. Dante has sworn to cleanse his realm of chaos, no matter how many centuries it may demand. In the darkest night, golden angels still rise. Most Blood Angels Astartes come to bear an appearance that feels almost impossibly beautiful, as though the echo of their Primarch lingers in their features. There is something refined in their faces, something serene and angelic, as if nobility itself has taken human form. Yet beneath that grace lies the quiet mark of the flaw within their gene seed. As the years pass, many grow ever more pale, their skin losing warmth until it seems touched by moonlight rather than sun. Their eye teeth lengthen subtly, a small but telling change that emerges slowly over the course of their lives. These alterations are believed to arise from the meeting of Sanguinius's genome with the transhuman metabolism of the chapter's warriors. It is a union of inherited legacy and engineered transformation, and it leaves its trace upon them. Among the successor chapters of the Sanguinary Brotherhood, similar traits appear as well, sometimes shaped further by small errors in DNA replication that have crept in across generations. The armor of the Blood Angels is painted in a deep, vivid red, the color of fresh spilled blood and solemn remembrance. Across that red rests the black chapter badge, stark and unmistakable, while each warrior bears squad markings in the hue of his own company. The trim of the armor shifts in tone, though most often it remains red like the plates themselves, or turns to black in quiet contrast. Upon the chest, the Imperial Aquila is usually rendered in yellow, gold, white, or black, resting against the crimson as a symbol of loyalty carried into every battle. The Blood Angels hold fast to a strict heraldic system, one that allows a brother's company and squad to be known at a glance. In the chaos of battle, such swift recognition carries clear advantage, yet it is more than practicality. The sons of Sanguinius revere these markings, wearing them with pride as living signs of belonging. Rather than follow standard codex compliance symbols or rely on helmet color to show rank, their helms speak of operational role. Red marks those who serve as battle line. Yellow belongs to close support. Blue signifies fire support. Gold rests upon the heads of veteran Marines and command. Librarians stand apart in blue armor, their left shoulder plate painted red, with the chapter badge placed upon the right knee in black over a red field. Sanguinary priests wear red trimmed in white, and upon their left shoulder rests a white chapter badge. The Death Company departs sharply from the red of their brethren, their armor repainted black and marked with red crosses that speak of sacrifice and of Sanguinius remembered. In contrast, the Sanguinary Guard are clad entirely in gold, adorned with white wings and many chapter markings across their armor, radiant and unmistakable. Company markings do not follow the Codex Astartes pattern of colored trim and Gothic numerals. Instead, symbols are borne upon the right shoulder plate. The first company bears a skull, while the others carry blood drops in differing colors. When a brother joins the Death Company, his former emblem is replaced by the icons of that doomed brotherhood. Only in rare cases does the chapter badge not rest upon the left shoulder plate. The first company, known as Veteran, displays a white skull over a red field on the right shoulder plate. Upon Terminator armor, the left shoulder bears the company's own heraldry, while the right shows the chapter badge in black or yellow for sergeants. The second company carries a single yellow blood drop, the third a white drop, the fourth green, the fifth black. The sixth shows twin yellow drops side by side, the seventh twin white, the eighth twin green, the ninth twin black. The 10th, the Scout Company, bears a black skull on the right shoulder plate and the chapter badge on the left. The chapter master, called the Lord Commander, is guarded by warriors in gold armor trimmed with black. Their right shoulder plates are painted red. The chapter badge is shown upon the left, and a white skull rests upon the right. Unlike many chapters, squad markings are worn upon the right knee guard as a single symbol. Following Roboot Gilliman's revisions to the Codex Astartes and the reorganization of the reserve companies in the Era Indomitus, additional squad numbers and icons were introduced, allowing for more than 100 battle brothers within a company in certain circumstances. Within the first squad appears a white skull upon black, and in the second, a white skull upon blue. The third shows a red blood drop on yellow, the fourth a red drop on black. The fifth bears a white cross on black, and the sixth a white cross on blue. A yellow lightning bolt rests on black for the seventh, while the eighth carries a black lightning bolt on yellow. The 9th bears a yellow angelic wing on black, the 10th a black wing on yellow. Beyond these, yellow and black skulls, white blood drops, red saltires, white lightning bolts, and angelic wings in red or white continue the pattern across further squads, each symbol tied to its field. Sergeants stand out with black pauldrons edged in red, marked by the Blood Angel's blood drop icon, while veteran sergeants add wings to that emblem. Lieutenants and captains wear more ornate versions of their company signs, reflecting their rank. Even their weapons carry artistry. A Blood Angel's bolter is most often sheathed in matte black, a somber casing that does nothing to lessen its deadly purpose. Many are embellished with fine inlays, gold chasing, or precious stones, crafted by the chapter's finest artisans. Scrolls fixed to armor record noble deeds, not as vanity but as remembrance, so that if the Black Rage claims the wearer, the warrior he was will not be forgotten. Across their war gear, pride and artistry is unmistakable. Some brothers shape new adornments upon their armor, while others inherit suits already heavy with blood drops and golden wings. In every flourish lies the nobility to which they aspire. The chapter badge of the Blood Angels is known in High Gothic as the Adeptus Mechanicus, the winged drop, an angelic droplet of ruby vitae framed by wings. When set upon armor, it is rendered in stylized form and painted entirely black upon the left shoulder guard. Sergeants are distinguished by having both shoulder guards painted black, and upon them rests a yellow chapter badge, marking their rank with quiet clarity. The Blood Angels are shaped not only by the spirit and deeds of Sanguinius, but also by the harsh nature of their home, the world of Baal. Few places in the Imperium press so heavily upon the human soul as Baal and its inhabited moons, Baal Prime and Baal Secundus. Long ago, Baal and its moons knew gentler skies. The air was like that of ancient earth. Baal itself lay beneath rust-red deserts, yet its moons were places of ease, where men and women lived close to nature and shaped their days in freedom. They became master artisans. They carved mountains into statues of rulers and gods, raising vast monuments that spoke of patience and skill. Even the surface of desolate Baal was not left untouched, for colonies and breathtaking edifices rose there as well. Then came a change no one can fully name. During the fearful collapse that ended the dark age of technology, the moons of Baal suffered beyond measure. Weapons of terrible power were unleashed. Cities were reduced to plains of smoldering glass. Grasslands withered into polluted deserts. Seas thickened into poisoned lakes of toxic sludge. Millions perished. It seemed for a time that humanity might vanish entirely from the Baal system. Yet some endured. They clung to life at the edges of radioactive deserts, scavenging among the bones of their own fallen civilization. In those dark years, order collapsed. Hunger drove some to acts of desperation, and cannibalism took root among the tribes. As centuries passed, the poisons that gathered in their bodies twisted many into mutants, hollow echoes of their ancestors. A few held fast to their humanity, preserved a fragment of reason, though they were embattled and rare in a culture grown savage among the ruins. The tribe became the only bond that mattered. Human and mutant alike trusted only their own kin. They wandered as nomads across blasted lands, riding in ramshackle vehicles, patching their radiation suits and listening in dread for the quiet click of their rad counters. Alliances shifted constantly as tribes fought for survival. The slow and weak-faced extinction without mercy. The moons that had once been near paradise became living hells. For a time, it seemed certain that humanity would fade away, leaving only endless desert and warring mutant clans. And then, from the star-strewn heavens, hope descended in the form of the winged Primarch Sanguinius. He grew swiftly to maturity and soon led the tribe known as the Blood. Under his guidance, the mutant tide was driven back. When the Emperor of Mankind came to Baal in search of his lost gene sons, Sanguinius did not resist. He recognized the Emperor at once and bent the knee before the Master of Mankind. The Emperor raised him and looked upon his people. Though genetic disease and mutation claimed many in youth, he saw that they were fair and noble. From among the finest warriors, he chose those who would be transformed into space marines. The others were left with honor to defend mankind's birthright upon Baal Secundus. In time, the great fortress monastery of the Blood Angels, the Arx Angelicum, rose upon Baal. Since the age of Sanguinius, the chapter has continued to draw its recruits from the tribes of the Blood on Baal Secundus and Baal Prime, where a colony was founded not long after the Horus Heresy. On Baal Secundus, among the feral tribes who endure its barren moons, the youths who would become Blood Angels begin with violence and endurance. They gather at Angel's Fall, the place where Sanguinius first came to ground, watched over now by a mighty statue of the Primarch that stands in silent vigil above the trials. The time of challenge is proclaimed by heralds who descend in flying chariots, thunderhawk gunships that cross the harsh skies and visit each tribe. From that moment, the first test has already begun. Each aspirant must reach the place of challenge by any means necessary. They cross the hostile Rad deserts, leap from high cliffs with nothing but crude hang gliders to bear them over the abyss, and move carefully through canyons where fire scorpions and other mutated predators wait in the dust. After the desert, there is the mountain and the long climb toward the testing ground. Many fall before they ever arrive. The desert itself chooses the strong. Only those with uncommon courage and skill endure its many dangers. When they reach the blast of challenge, the trials do not end. Gladiatorial contests follow, and the aspirants fight for the few places that are open to them. Those who prevail are lifted away in sky chariots. Those who fail remain behind, some to guard the testing ground until the next generation comes, others to find their own way back to their tribes. The chosen are carried to Baal itself, to the Arx Angelicum, the fortress monastery of the Blood Angels. There they are paraded before members of the chapter and led into the great chapel. For the first time, they see the unmasked faces of their future brothers, their sharp eye teeth and sleekly beautiful features revealed without concealment. The youths who stand there are far from beautiful. Life beneath the ambient radiation of those barren moons leaves its mark. Stigmata, stunted growth from malnutrition, lesions, and carcinomas are common among them. Hard lives have shaped their bodies, and the desert has not been gentle. Within the great chapel they keep vigil. In silence they await the sanguinary priests, who bring forth the red grail. From it, the aspirants drink the viral catalysts that begin their transformation into transhuman Astartes. Sleep soon claims them, and servitors bear their resting forms to the apothecarian, where the gene seed of Sanguinius is implanted into their recumbent bodies. From there, they are taken to the Hall of Sarcophagi. Each is placed within a mighty golden sarcophagus. Life support nodes are attached, and for a Terran year they are sustained by nutrients and by the blood of Sanguinius, delivered intravenously while the gene seed reshapes them. Many do not survive this strain. Their bodies fail beneath the burden of the change. Those who endure grow swiftly and truly, gaining immense muscle and the additional organs that mark a space marine. In that darkness they dream. The gene seed carries memories of Sanguinius, and through these visions the Primarch's essence begins to settle into their souls. On rare occasions one awakens too soon, and is left alone within the claustrophobic dark. Those who emerge early are almost always touched by mental infirmity, and even after, the dreams linger, returning in sleep and sometimes in waking hours to haunt the blood angels. When at last the sarcophagi open, the survivors rise transformed. They stand tall and strong, their forms superhuman, and their features reshaped into a beauty that echoes their angelic forebear. Their senses sharpen, their muscles are stronger than tempered steel. They are prepared to begin their training. Now they are Blood Angels neophytes. This is only the first step. In time, they will serve within the chapter's 10th company as scouts, and from there move onward to join the other companies as fully fledged initiates. Sanguinius was always a visionary. In his earliest days, he longed to guide his people toward a new and better life, lifting them beyond hardship and ruin. When he stepped into the vast theater of the Great Crusade, that hope did not fade, it simply widened, embracing all of humanity. He wished for an end to the horrors that had followed the collapse of human civilization during the Age of Strife, and that desire never left him. The Primarch shaped the Blood Angels in his own image. Within their doctrines, there runs a quiet current of mysticism, a steady belief that what is broken can be remade. They have always held that the way of things can change for the better. The transformation of an irradiated, genetically damaged scavenger into a tall, proud, and handsome warrior stands as living proof of that conviction. This belief touches everything they do. The Blood Angels strive for perfection in all things. Their art is marked by beauty and symmetry. Their martial disciplines are practiced without end, refined again and again across long centuries. Even their doctrines carry a gentle awareness of mortality and of the fallen greatness of humanity. Physically, they are among the longest lived of all the Space Marines. Their gene seed bears a rare peculiarity, greatly extending the lifespan of those who carry it. It is not uncommon for a blood angel to live for 1,000 Terran years. The current chapter master, Commander Dante, has endured for nearly 1,100 standard years, his life stretching across ages of war. Such extended years grant them time to master art as well as battle. Centuries pass as they perfect the disciplines to which they devote their minds, and it is little wonder that their armor and banners are among the most ornate crafted by the Adeptus Astartes. There are stranger customs as well. An inquisitor named Garillion once journeyed to their fortress monastery on Baal in the 40th millennium. He witnessed a habit that sets them apart. Whenever possible, the blood angels sleep within the very sarcophagi used to create them. In that timeless slumber, they believe themselves one step closer to Sanguinius, seeking some quiet insight into the mind of their forefather. While they rest in those chambers, their blood is cleansed and purified. In this way, the chapter hopes to slow the long drift of possible genetic degeneration, holding back the shadow that may one day overtake them until a permanent solution for the Black Rage can be found. Yet for all their reflection and ritual, their devotion to the Emperor burns fiercely. The records of their wars leave little doubt. With fervor and zeal that equals or surpasses any other chapter, they carry out his will. Across the Imperium, their victories stand in numberless measure, and the tally of aliens and heretics they have slain in his name is beyond counting. Of all the warriors of the Legiones Astartes, the Blood Angels were changed the most. Their passage from mortal flesh into the form of a space marine was deeper and more absolute than that of the Space Wolves or the Salamanders, even though those legions bore their own visible marks. The blood of their Primarch did not simply guide the transformation, it rewrote it. The aspirant's gene helix was aggressively overwritten, reshaping even the rad, scarred, and twisted inhabitants of Baal into figures of impossible perfection. Each warrior became a living echo of Sanguinius, the angel in his fearsome glory. Yet such power carried a price. The transformation was arcane and elaborate, and far more painful than that endured by any other legion. Even when steadied by the direct infusion of their Primarch's own blood, many aspirants did not survive. The fatalities were frighteningly high. Those who lived were not untouched. Some believed the scars upon the mind were as deep as those upon the flesh. A fierce sense of cause and purpose settled within them, unwavering and absolute. But that certainty could, in a heartbeat, turn to a sudden and violent fury whenever their purpose was threatened. Every chapter bears the imprint of its Primarch, shaped in body by gene seed and in spirit by teaching. None were marked so profoundly as the sons of Sanguinius. Though few know it, the Blood Angels and their successor chapters carry a dreadful flaw within their inheritance, and they are a dying breed because of it. Once counted among the most golden and blessed of the Adeptus Astartes, they now keep apart where they can. Some are driven by the Black Rage, seized by visions of their Primarch's death. Others struggle against the red thirst, a craving for blood that some whisper may hint at corruption. Many search quietly for a cure, yet most accept the slow decline of their kind. There are those who claim the flaw began before the Legion was ever formed, saying that Sanguinius was touched by chaos during his passage through the warp, pointing to his wings as proof of mutation. Others deny this, reminding all that the Emperor trusted him without reservation and oversaw the Legion's creation. Some counter even that, recalling that trust has failed before. Another belief speaks of insanguination, the ritual used to awaken the implanted organs of each new aspirant. In the earliest days of the Legions, there was no single method, and each followed its own path. The Space Wolves practiced blooding, the Imperial Fists the Hand of Faith, the White Scars the rites of the Risen Moon, and the Blood Angels drank of their Primarchs' blood. After Sanguinius fell at the hands of Horus during the Siege of Terra, what remained of his blood was preserved within the Red Grail. It was placed within the veins of the sanguinary priests, who became living vessels of his power. To this day, aspirants and priests drink from the Red Grail as part of their induction, and from these priests, the blood is taken to begin the transformation. Over countless generations, perhaps the cells of the gene seed have changed. Some speak of errors in replication, of gradual mutation that has grown worse in recent years. Others point to the loss of the stored gene seed imprint during the wars on Terra and Mars, and to the need to rebuild the Legion from the body of their fallen Primarch. Whatever the origin, the hold of the flaw has strengthened. The psychic echo of Sanguinius' death lingers within every blood angel. In battle, they may feel his rage against Horus, reliving those final moments. When the black rage takes hold, recovery is rare. Those afflicted are confined within the Tower of Amareo on Baal, or formed into the Death Company, clad in black armor and led by chaplains who still command their obedience. They are sent into the fiercest assaults, seeking an honorable end. Strangely, the same curse that brings madness may also prolong life until the final collapse. Commander Dante stands as the oldest living space marine not entombed within a dreadnought, born more than 1,000 years ago. Beneath it all lies the red thirst, a constant hunger held in check by will alone. At the height of battle, it can surface pale skin and sharpened teeth betraying its grip. It is their darkest secret, and yet, in an uneasy way, a source of humility that deepens their nobility. Some who fall fully to the thirst are hidden away. There are whispers of a chamber atop the Tower of Amareo, and of howls that cry out for blood, though none speak plainly of what lies within. On distant worlds, there have been reports of the missing found drained of life. Whether this is the work of enemies, misguided worshippers, or blood angels overcome, few can say with certainty. It is said that in some places, fearful citizens may even have offered sacrifices to their towering visitors. It is also possible that those deaths were the work of warriors who lost their struggle against the red thirst. Those touched by it often grow pale, and the urge to drink the blood of their foes can rise without warning in the midst of combat. Some develop elongated and sharpened eye teeth, subtle marks of the curse that binds them. The flaw did not remain with the Blood Angels alone. It passed into their successor chapters, the Flesh Terrors, the Blood Drinkers, and the Angels Sanguine. One chapter, the Lamenters, was altered at its founding by the Adeptus Mechanicus. Through genetic tinkering, the flaw was removed from Sanguinius's gene seed. Yet ever since, the Lamenters have endured relentless misfortune in battle, catastrophe following catastrophe, until they were nearly destroyed. In more recent times, the arrival of Primaris Marines derived from Sanguinius's lineage shifted this balance. After the devastation of Baal, these warriors at first seemed immune to the Black Rage, though not to the Red Thirst. Even so, they appeared able to master their fury with greater control, and there were fewer tragic incidents among civilians or allied forces. There are rare figures who have broken the grip of the curse. Nephiston was once Brother Callisterius, a librarian of strength and promise. During the Second War for Armageddon, as part of the relief force for Hades' Hive, he was trapped beneath the ruins of a collapsed ecclesorium for 7 days and nights. In that darkness, a vision of Sanguinius came to him, and he fought back the curse. He emerged reborn as Mephiston, the Lord of Death, his psychic power fully awakened. In time, he rose to become chief librarian, regarded as the spiritual son of Sanguinius and a beacon of hope. Many believe him the most powerful librarian among the Astartes, perhaps even the mightiest psyker in the Imperium after the Emperor himself. Rathan, once a battle brother and later a sergeant, faced his own trial. He was forced to kill his sibling Archeo, who had claimed to be Sanguinius reborn, but was in truth deceived by chaos and twisted into a false likeness. To defeat the Lord of Change Malphalax, Raven surrendered himself to the gene curse and unleashed the power of the Holy Spear of Telesto, once wielded by Sanguinius. In the end, he drew himself back from the brink of madness and later aided Mephiston in overcoming the Black Rage a second time. The Blood Angels have long been counted among the finest craftsmen the Imperium has ever known. Even the simplest weapon shaped within their forges carries the touch of an artist. Each blade, each bolt gun, each fragment of armor is fashioned as something beautiful, though none are any less deadly for their grace. Many enemies have learned that lesson too late. Among their treasures are the relics of Baal, objects of rare honor granted to heroes or taken as trophies in wars long past. Some reach back 10 millennia to the blood-soaked days of the Horus Heresy. When they are not born into battle, they rest within the Arx Angelicum on Baal, silent and watchful. There is the Angel's Wing, an ancient jump pack first crafted for Leonardus, captain of the 8th Company in the fading years of the 32nd millennium. It was shaped to match his reckless spirit, its own machine spirit devoted to shielding him and his brothers as they plunged toward war. Even now, its augurs and wards guide the wearer through tangled skies and through storms of fire, sparing them from all but the heaviest blows. The Angelus pattern bolter rests at the wrist, drum-fed and precise, freeing both hands while it pours out close-range fire. Its bloodshot rounds, tipped with monofilament edges, bite through armor before delivering their explosive charge. In the hands of a battle brother, it becomes an extension of intent. Archangel's Edge once lay in the grasp of Brother Sergeant Ottavos, placed there by Dante before the battles upon Asphodex, long as it marked those whose deeds rise beyond even the high expectations of the chapter. During the Cryptus campaign, as the Blood Angel struck into the Fabricate district, its overcharged field allowed Ottavos to cut down the largest Tyranid beasts with a single measured blow. From the shattered blade Sanguinius wielded against Horus were gathered fragments, and from those fragments new power swords were forged. Each shard was gifted to a different successor chapter, so that even in ruin the Primarch's weapon would endure. The aureate halo, once worn by Carlion and drawn from the armories of the Archangels, is said to have been crafted in the time of the Second Founding. Nearby, the banner of the Archangel host bears witness to the earliest deeds of the First Company, when they were first named the Archangels. To stand beneath it is to feel the weight of history, and to face it is to know one stands against the finest of the chapter. The blade in carmine passed from Sanguinius after his death at the Siege of Terra into the hands of Belarius, the first chapter master after the Second Founding. It is said that only those who carry the blood of the Primarch may draw upon its true strength. Other weapons were shaped for darker duties. The blades of judgment were once carried by the Ophanim, who executed those of the bloodline who succumbed to the red thirst. Forged from blanks no artisan would claim, they took the form of great swords, axes, and glaives, all bound to the grim task of slaying space marines who had fallen from grace. One such blade, an enormous hand and a half-power sword, was later forged for the justiciar Sardanus Varel. The blood chalices were first presented to the sanguinary priesthood by Sanguinius himself. Legend whispers that he placed a part of his being within each vessel. Those who drink from a chalice feel wounds close and weariness fade, yet each draught risks drawing them closer to the red thirst. So sacred are these relics that the Blood Angels would rather die than see one taken. Blood drop pendants hang at throats and from belts, sometimes filled with a warrior's own blood, sometimes fashioned from crystal or jewel. They are quiet reminders of the blood of Sanguinius that flows within them all. During the first battles of the Grey Hell Front in the Jericho Reach, a lone warrior stood against the Tau, sustained by a vial holding a single drop of blood from each fallen brother. He claimed their voices strengthened him. The chaplains later declared that gathered blood, a relic known as the Blood of Heroes, a reminder of duty owed to the Aculus Crusade. Blood Song, the combi melta crafted for Captain Erasmus Tycho, was perfectly balanced and carried a noble machine spirit. It could fire the special blood shard rounds favored by Sternguard veterans, and it never failed its master. Within the Omega Vault of Watch Fortress Ariok, the Chalice of Vision was revealed, engraved with the final battle of Sanguinius against Horus. It releases a ritual compound when filled. Through the rite of vision, it is said to grant a clarity akin to that once possessed by the Primarch. And there is the crown angelic, wrought by the artisan Agostinius. Its worth cannot be measured in coin. On the field of battle, it burns with a merciless radiance that sears the souls of the foe, and even the bravest feel their courage falter beneath its light. The dead man's hand once encased the fist of Erasmus Tycho, a gauntlet able to pierce armor at close quarters. Hidden within it were digital weapons, ready to flash to life in the press of combat, turning a single strike into something far more lethal. Across the chapter, heroes wear death masks shaped in the likeness of the fallen. Golden energy arcs across their surfaces, and baleful light shines from their eyes. Though they grant no added protection, their presence alone unsettles the foe. When a member of the Sanguinary Guard falls, his mask is placed within the sarcophagus of sorrows on Baal. After 7 days and 7 nights in darkness, it bears the stylized features of its former wearer, a change the Blood Angel's name a miracle. The death mask of Sanguinius, modeled upon the Primarch after his death, is bound into the helm of Commander Dante. It carries the echo of his rage at Horus's betrayal, and in battle it seems to awaken. A nimbus of golden light surrounds him, and his true face remains unseen beyond the fortress monastery. After Mephiston was struck down by the Tyranid creature called the Mind Death, the librarians of the Conclave of Blood shaped the executioner's hood. Using psychically charged fluids from a slain Maleceptor, they crafted a psychic hood attuned to the resonance of the hive mind. It could not silence its powers entirely, yet it nearly blocked the suffocating shadow in the warp. The Exsanguinator serves both as a medical instrument and as a weapon. When a brother falls, the sanguinary priests use it to recover his gene seed, preserving his legacy for those yet to come. Fury of Baal, a masterwork plasma pistol, burns as fiercely as the star that circles their home. Its containment chambers and heat sinks temper its wrath so that it harms only the enemy, never the hand that holds it. Galleon's staff was fashioned by librarian Donatus Galleon to draw away the fury of his red thirst and feed it into his psychic strength. Since his passing, others have taken it up, though its hunger for emotion deepens with each passing century. The glaives in carmine, wrought from angel steel by forgotten methods, have endured since before the Horus Heresy. In the hands of the Sanguinary Guard, they move in sweeping arcs, never scratching or warping, as graceful as they are deadly. Golconda, an iron halo, takes its name from a fabled statue of transcendence and mastery over the Black Rage. Golden icons hang from armor and belts, small gilded tokens of devotion that steady the spirit. The Hammer of Baal, placed into Garlean's care by Dante when he became captain of the First Company, has shattered traitors and aliens across countless worlds. Heaven's Teeth, a master-crafted chainsword from the era of Sanguinius, now rests with Brother Corbulo. Octavio once struggled against the red thirst until a chaplain inscribed the canticle of unceasing service upon his bolter. So long as he struck down an enemy each day, his mind remained clear, and he is said to have fought a battle every day of his life. That blessed weapon still channels rage into cold precision. Some speak of the ravenous blade as though it thirsts for blood itself, urging even mighty heroes toward the madness of the Black Rage. The Red Grail stands as the most sacred relic of all, said to contain the blood of the slain Primarch. In the ritual of creation, aspirants ingest a portion of that blood to begin their transformation. Upon the battlefield, its presence renews the strength of every blood angel nearby. Brother Corpulo serves as its keeper. The Shroud of Sanguinius is believed to be the fragment of the standard the Emperor used to cover the Primarch's body upon the vengeful spirit. Only a small piece remains, held in stasis, yet its psychic aura can drive nearby warriors into an ecstatic state through its silent emanations. The Spear of Telesto was once carried by Sanguinius during the Great Crusade. Forged from lost archaeotech by the Emperor himself, it was gifted to his angelic son. Within the fortress monastery on Baal, the tapestries of Riga show the Primarch wielding it against the Slaughter Lord Moroga. Its blade, shaped like an elongated tear with a hollow at its heart, recalls the single drop of blood Sanguinius shed when he swore fealty. Light glimmers within it, then along its sculpted haft stands the hooded angel of blood, wings spread wide, beneath a purity seal bearing the Emperor's personal mark. In battle, it can unleash a blast of energy that vaporizes any who do not carry the blood of Sanguinius. Once thought lost during the Horus Heresy, it was later traced to the world of Evangelion in the 41st Millennium. The battle barge Belus was dispatched, and among Orgeld systems in the Segmentum Obscurus, it was recovered by a team led by Inquisitor Ramius Steele. The standard of sacrifice was woven by blinded mystics of Baal Secundus and anointed with the blood of imperial martyrs. It radiates a quiet aura of selfless heroism that steadies those who stand nearby. Valor's Edge, a power sword of striking beauty, gleams with golden light and bears a finely worked hilt, set with jewels. Ancient records suggest it was presented to Sanguinius by the Emperor as a token of some long-forgotten victory. The blade judges the purity of the one who grasps it, and when that intent is true, it blazes with golden fire, cutting a radiant path through any foe. The Veritas Vitae is awakened only when the scrolls of Sanguinius foretell a specific conflict. The prophetic words are read into its machine spirit, and this ornate Vox Reliquary hovers behind an officer, repeating fragments of foresight that may shift the course of battle, or even of war. The winged jump packs of the Sanguinary Guard carry them downward like avenging angels, broad wings catching the light as they descend. To enemies it is a vision of fear, and to allies it is a promise of deliverance. And there are the wings of Sarnath, once borne by a legendary Sanguinary Guard who fell upon Baraspine in the Adrantes Nebula of the Galaxy's sector. His body was left a withered husk and his armor shattered, yet his jump pack endured. Repaired with reverence, those wings were later gifted to the Deathwatch, in exchange for a vow to hunt down and exact vengeance upon the unknown killers who struck him down. The fleet of the Blood Angels carries with it a long and solemn memory, its vessels moving through history as they once moved through the void. At its heart sailed the Red Deer, a Gloriana-class battleship that stood as the flagship of the Ninth Legion during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. Close beside it in those distant years was the Covenant of Baal, a battleship that for a time bore the weight of command during the Cygnus Campaign, serving as interim flagship when the Legion required steady guidance. The Ignis II moved among them, another battleship of the same era, present in the long march of conquest and in the darkness that followed. Among the battle barges, Babellus is remembered with quiet reverence. It undertook a decade-long mission deep into the heart of an orc empire, and from that hostile domain it returned with an ancient chapter artifact thought lost since the elder days of the Horus Heresy. That relic was the Spear of Telesto, a weapon of magnificent craftsmanship and power, once carried into battle by the Primarch Sanguinius himself. Other battle barges stood ready as well, the Blade of Vengeance and the Blood Collar moving as instruments of the chapter's will. The Blood Crusader served the Terminators of the First Company under Captain Ubaldo, carrying them to cleanse a Genestealer infestation within the Space Hulk Forsaken Doom, a threat that loomed over the Forge world of Gorgonum. In darker memory rests the Seleno, a battle barge destroyed at the Battle of Sibyl by the Word-bearer's vessel, Dirge Eterna. The Victus once bore Captain Amit of the Fifth Company during the Great Crusade in the Horus Heresy, and after the second founding it passed to the newly formed Flesh-Tearers. When they made their home upon the world of Cretacia, they dismantled the Victus and razed their fortress monastery from its remains. Heavy cruisers and cruisers formed the wider body of the fleet. The Chalice endured through the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, as did the Blood Sun and the Incarnadine. The Helios vanished with all hands in the Cygnus cluster under mysterious circumstances, its fate never fully known. The Hermia moved with stealth capability, while the 9 Crusaders, the Numitor, and the Requiem Axona each served in the same long campaigns. The Sable and the Scarlet Liberty sailed in those eras as well, and the Pale Night met its end near the planet Holst in the Cygnus cluster. In later years, strike cruisers carried the chapter's captains into battle. The Angelic Blade and the Flame of Baal answered to Captain Sendini of the Fifth Company. The Crimson Exhortation served Captain Castigon of the Fourth Company, known as the Knights of Baal. The Sanguintier moved under Captain Carlet of the First Company, its name echoing the legacy of sacrifice and duty that binds the fleet together, vessel by vessel, across the long silence of the stars. In battle, the Blood Angels were the Emperor's wrath made visible. Under the angelic presence of Sanguinius, their arrival felt like judgment descending from the heavens. They came from the skies as if on wings of fire, and when they fell upon lost human worlds, it was with a fury that seemed beyond mortal measure. Nations trembled at the sight of the Red Angels. Many fell to their knees before the splendor and terror of the Legion, fearing the flash of glimmering blades. Against alien foes, there was no mercy at all. The Legion became a tide of relentless carnage, and that tide did not recede until nothing remained. During the Great Crusade, they became known for wars of ultimatum. A world would be given a single choice, offered by Sanguinius or one of his praetors. Embrace unification or endure a day of revelation. Often, dread alone was enough. Whole populations surrendered at the sight of the gathered hosts, Yet for those who refused, the shining face of the angel would darken, and destruction would fall from above without hesitation. Their doctrines were shaped around shock assault, one overwhelming blow to shatter resistance at once. Flamers and melta-weapons were favored, not only for their power, but for the fear they inspired when unleashed in close quarters. Still, there was another side to them. When pressed beyond endurance, they could stand against impossible odds. Even in their final moments, they would drag their enemies down with them. To their brother Legiones Astartes, this resilience seemed almost unnatural. It was not the product of one plan or trait, but of an unbreakable will, fed by the grief and fury carried in their hearts for fallen battle brothers. Such battles were remembered as days of sorrows, few standing against many, selling their lives dearly. Their names were preserved in sacred rites of battle and remembrance, spoken again and again so that they would never fade. When much of the Legion was absent at Cygnus Prime, the scattered ships and garrisons that remained faced war in a fractured Imperium. They were often outnumbered. Again and again, they endured their own days of sorrow, and as they burned into the night, countless traitor foes perished alongside them. In the eras that followed, the companies of the Blood Angels fought much like other Space Marine forces, yet always with a marked preference for aggression. Their actions were decisive, often launched from space and carried swiftly onto planetary soil by highly mobile forces. Assault units, including the Death Company, would strike first. They closed with the weakest point in the enemy line as soon as the moment allowed, moving under the cover of supporting fire. Behind them came mounted tactical units and armored forces, ready to widen the breach and turn it into collapse. Once the line was broken, the assault did not pause. They pushed forward into the depths of the enemy position, disrupting any attempt at organized response. Meanwhile, the remaining forces advanced methodically, clearing resistance and establishing fire support to hold the next objective in place. Their devotion to perfection in all martial things shaped careful, strategic, and tactical planning. Long years granted them time to refine their craft, and it showed in the precision of their campaigns. Yet there was a flaw that could not be planned away. The Black Rage might seize any warrior in the midst of battle. When it did, discipline could give way to an uncontrollable charge, a need to tear the enemy apart with bare hands if necessary. At times, that sudden fury brought victory where none seemed possible. Sheer aggression shattered positions that should have held. But Imperial commanders sometimes hesitated to call upon them, wary that such savagery, once unleashed, might not be easily contained. Like their brother chapters, the Blood Angels keep a librarium, and within it serve psychers of rare discipline and strength. These librarians are chosen in the ways long established, drawn either from the chapter's own worlds or from gifted psychers who once walked the halls of the Scholastica Sicana. They are trained according to the ancient paths set down in the Codex Astartes, and though a few traditions differ, they live by its word with steady devotion. In war, they are terrible to behold, breaking the designs of enemy warlords from Damocles to the Cadians. Their lives are not shaped by battle alone. They test new recruits, guide their own training, and watch over the sacred halls of knowledge entrusted to them. Each librarium is a quiet sanctuary, a place of whispered secrets and hidden truths. Ancient tomes rest beside sacred scrolls, and every record laid down by the chapter or vital to its existence is preserved there. Fortress monasteries hold such chambers with reverence, safeguarding lore, battle accounts, and psychically active artifacts such as force weapons. Victories are remembered, defeats are not forgotten, and the legends of heroes are carefully recorded by those sworn to protect the chapter's memory. Beyond the homeworld, smaller librariums travel within battle barges, serving during long campaigns among the stars. Though no two are ever identical, many rise around a central pillar, with racks of books and scrolls spiraling outward into shadowed antechambers. There lie data slates, chronicle stones, and Nemino slates, preserving the final words of heroes and the secrets wrested from fallen foes. At the heart of each stands the oldest copy of the Codex Astartes available, held within a stasis plinth or shielded by hollow reflection. In dark times, lords of the Adeptus Astartes walk those silent halls, seeking resolve in the ancient words that have guided them for generations. The librarians of the Blood Angels wield powers shaped by their chapter's spirit, each ability a reflection of disciplined fury. With Blood Boil, a surge of psychic force drives an enemy's blood into a raging heat, flash boiling it until it bursts forth in a final, violent release. Through Bloodlands, a crimson spear of psychic energy forms at a single word of command, flying forward to pierce all that stands before it. Fear the darkness spreads a shadow across the battlefield, carrying the malice of the warp in a wave of terror that gnaws at the soul. In contrast, Might of Heroes turns that same immaterium inward, heightening speed and strength beyond mortal limits, and stirring a deep well of rage to strike at the Emperor's foes. When the Sanguine Sword is invoked, a force weapon glows with violent red light, fed by a fragment of the librarian's inner fire. Shackle soul reaches into an enemy's essence, binding it in psychic chains that deny movement, attack, or the shaping of further power. Shield of Sanguinius rises as a shimmering golden barrier, preserving companions from harm. Smite answers with bolts of ruby lightning, tearing through those who oppose the chapter. Through Unleash Rage, the librarian touches the minds of his brothers and frees the savagery buried within their gene-wrought hearts. And with wings of Sanguinicius, blood-red wings of psychic energy unfurl from his back, bearing him aloft across the field of war. Hidden within the librarium are sacred texts that speak of deeper disciplines, techniques that sharpen psychic might, or still the power of a foe. Those who walk the librarious discipline learn to strike with unseen force, fortify mind and body with the warp, and sever the connection of rival psychers. The Emperor's wrath sends crackling bolts from a gauntlet to tear through armor. Veil of Time stretches perception beyond the present, allowing strands of fate to be glimpsed before the moment returns, Fury of the Ancients calls forth a monstrous shape of psychic energy drawn from myth and legend, while Psychic Fortress shields mind and brethren alike from sorcerous assault. Might of Heroes gauges the immaterium within mortal form, and Psychic Scourge becomes a contest of will that seeks to strip arcane knowledge from a witch's mind. Through Null Zone, defenses, both technological and mystical, are cast down, leaving the enemy exposed to retribution. Technomancy turns attention to the spirits of machines. Subvert machine imposes will upon an enemy's machine spirit, forcing confusion or betrayal. Blessing of the machine stirs dormant spirits to brief but violent life. Machine Curse lays bare inner workings for destruction, and Reforge soothes a wounded hull through communion of mind and spirit. Warp Metal Armor gathers warp energy into steely protection, while Fury of Mars unleashes a pulse that ruins impure technology. Machine Flens rends armor apart and hurls the torn fragments onward to strike again. Fulmination is the art of lightning, of arcing life force shaped by thought alone. Electro surge races through veins and leaps outward to jar flesh. Electro shield forms a crackling barrier against harm, and Electro Pulse releases a storm of energy that disrupts machine circuits. Lightning arc bursts from eyes and mouth in lethal arcs. Fists of lightning wreath the hands in living coronae, and Magnetokinesis lifts allies within a field of force to safer ground. With electro displacement, a flash of warp-born lightning exchanges positions in an instant. Geokinesis reaches beneath the skin of a world. Chasm opens the ground into molten depths. Earthblood draws healing strength from the planet itself. Scorched earth twists solid ground into burning ruin, and Landquake sends a shockwave that casts warriors from their feet. Phase Forum shifts an ally out of step with reality, while Warpquake shatters a structure through focused will. Shifting Worldscape raises Earth and those upon it, bearing them through the air before setting them down anew. To be entombed within a dreadnought is counted as the highest honor, for though flesh is broken, the mind and spirit endure in service to Chapter, Primarch, and Emperor. Most who receive this fate are veterans or captains who fell at the front. On rare occasions, a librarian is interred, his psychic gift undimmed by ruin of the body. Within a librarian dreadnought, the armor and firepower of a Furioso dreadnought are joined with a mind that is itself a weapon. From within the sarcophagus, fearsome blasts of warp energy and seething arcs of etheric force are unleashed, and waves of dread roll outward to scour the enemy's courage. Some replace a power claw with a force blade, fast and laced with psychoconductive material. Through it, psychic power is focused with terrible precision. At the moment of impact, reality itself seems torn apart, and few armors can withstand such force. These ancients are revered above most, and even seasoned captains heed their counsel. It is almost unheard of for such warriors to serve in the Deathwatch. Only under near unique circumstances does it occur, most notably when a librarian falls during the long watch and a dreadnought body stands ready to receive him. Though many fallen are returned to their chapters, there have been rare times when a librarian has insisted on remaining at the Watch Fortress, his will conveyed through mind-speech rather than broken lips. Such spirits are indomitable. Even a watch commander will not deny their wish. Entombed once more, they continue their vigil until it ends, and their remains may be returned home. Some choose to remain long after the vigil is complete, and the apocryphal oath fulfilled, slumbering for centuries within stasis-sealed vaults at the heart of the watch station, waiting for the call to rise and fight again. The Blood Angels have long served within the Deathwatch, the chamber militant of the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition. When they take the black and stand as Deathwatch battle brothers, they carry themselves with quiet intensity. They expect much from themselves, and no less from those beside them. As sons of Sanguinius, they are masters of finely wrought weapons and of assaults that break armies apart in a single decisive blow. Their vanguard veterans are striking figures within the ranks, moving with skill and certainty. Perfection is not a simple ideal for them. It is a demand that follows them into every action, every command. When one of their number is chosen to lead a kill team or raised to the rank of watch captain or watch commander, he becomes a stern and exacting master, yet he is always capable, steady in judgment, and sure in war. Beneath that calm exterior, however, there is a burden. The dreadful flaw of the chapter gnaws in silence. At night he rests uneasily within his sarcophagus, his blood drawn through arcane machineries in the hope that the flaw might be held at bay. None beyond the sons of Sanguinius are permitted to glimpse this struggle, and even among themselves it is rarely spoken of. They endure it with dignity, waiting for the day their apocryphal oath is fulfilled and they may return to their chapter. When the Oculus Crusade began in the Jericho Reach, the Blood Angels were not present at its outset. A message had been sent, carried by a meme locked Master Astropeth and directed to their chapter master, Commander Dante. Aid was requested for the coming offensive, yet at that time, much of the chapter was engaged in suppression actions near the galactic core, and companies that might have been spared were drawn away by the Tyranids' assault upon Ultramar. Still, their bloodline answered in other ways. A company of the Angels Vermilion appeared at the muster point without warning, mere solar weeks before the first assault. Soon after, 2 companies of the Flesh Terrors arrived, another successor of the Blood Angels. Though kin by lineage, these forces fought apart, and no exchange between them was ever observed. Just before the Tyranids reached the war zone, both chapters withdrew without further word. Not long after, a Blood Angel strike force made planetfall at Heathguard. Its leader, veteran Sergeant Tobias, spoke before the Crusade's high command and recalled how his squads had stood with their brother chapters at the Battle of Magrog. While many veterans of that struggle had returned to Baal, this force had chosen to pursue the splinters of High Fleet Behemoth. Their path, he said, had brought them into the Jericho Reach in the wake of High Fleet Dagon. From that moment onward, the Blood Angels fought boldly within the Reach. Some actions were undertaken at the request of Lord Tetrarchus and other Imperial commanders. Others followed their own quiet purpose. On several occasions, they operated alongside the Deathwatch, and veteran Sergeant Tobias entered the Chamber of Vigilance more than once. Watch Fortress Ariok came to hold many of their number. The opportunity to serve under the venerated Watch Commander Mordecai drew them in, and their presence left its mark. Warriors there became skilled in operations centered upon the Stormraven gunship. It was believed that much like the Grey Knights, the Deathwatch in the Jericho Reach had long possessed access to this craft. Its compact form, formidable weapons, and swift agility made it well suited for the small, self-contained kill teams who strike hard and vanish into shadow. In all its incarnations, the Ninth Legion never truly fit the standard by which the Legiones Astartes were measured. In its earliest days, it moved with a simple order of battle, little more than massed infantry companies with few specialized warriors among them. Many fought as Reaver squads, close-quarters killers, carrying arms that required little resupply, perfect for campaigns fought far from the main strength of the Great Crusade. Yet beneath that efficiency lingered the red thirst. It haunted the Legion and gnawed at its discipline, making any lasting structure difficult to maintain. Tactics were often born in the moment, shaped by companies or even squads as battle unfolded, rather than by some grand design shared across the whole Legion. Operating at a distance from other forces, and with limited oversight from the Divisio Militaris, they kept their more troubling practices from disturbing Allied morale. Those who fought beside them understood, without speaking it aloud, that the Ninth would be allowed to wage war in its own way. Its first commanders were warlords more than officers. They enforced order at sword point and earned loyalty through strength of arms. When one advanced, his warriors followed. When he held the line, they dug in. When he ceased the killing, so did they. It was brutally efficient, and only overwhelming casualties could disrupt it, for if one leader fell, another veteran stepped forward without hesitation. All of this shifted with the return of Sanguinius. The winged Primarch brought order to a legion that had long been fractious. He shaped a new structure in the hope of containing its hunger. Outwardly, it resembled the Principia Bellicosa, yet in truth, it differed in many quiet ways. The Legion was first formed into 200 companies of roughly 300 warriors, and in the last years of the Great Crusade, this grew to 300 companies of 500 each. For greater campaigns, these companies gathered into hosts, temporary formations created and dissolved as need required. Above them, Sanguinius formed 3 spheres. These stood apart from the companies and from the strictures of the Principia Bellicosa, creating another layer of purpose. The 3rd sphere embraced the ranked and file, the Malak, warriors who bore blade and bolter and found steadiness in simple obedience. They fought, they trained in the arts granted by their Primarch, and through discipline they held the hunger at bay. Within their ranks, small honors marked those who excelled as marksmen, poets, or duelists, titles modest yet treasured. The 2nd sphere gathered the commanders, those who stood beside Sanguinius and carried the burden of choice. They planned and directed wars as though guiding a symphony, mastering not only blade and gun, but pen and brush as well. They were not single-minded zealots, yet few could equal their command of war in its entirety. At the heart stood the first sphere, the Immortals. These warriors served within the Primarch's presence, apart from the companies. Each surrendered his former name and took another, shedding identity to act without regret. They were the Primarch's wrath and resolve made flesh, entrusted with tasks that would stain the soul and awaken the hunger. When their duty ended, they laid aside those burdens as they laid aside their assumed selves, returning to the ranks once more. Within the first spear, the ancient blood angels formed a number of distinct warrior orders. Each stood apart from the 300 companies, bound instead to a singular purpose under the Primarch's will. Foremost among them were the Sanguinary Guard, known also as the Ikisat, the Burning Ones. Every warrior bore the title of Seraph and stood as the ultimate safeguard of Sanguinius himself. At times, they were lent as guardians to other commanders, a quiet sign of the great angel's favor. The Crimson Paladins, called the Cherubim or Storm Winds, guarded the Primarch's halls and sanctums and the Legion's holdings across the galaxy. Their watch extended over Baal, Canopus, and Siphof. When commanded, they strode into battle as an elite formation, embodying determination and serving as the shield of their Lord's will. In the shadows moved the Burning Eyes, the Ophanim known as the Many-Eyed. They were the angels' shame, secret watchers who searched their own legion for treachery or madness. Acting to remove any stain, they fought alone and with weapons deemed unworthy of more open warriors. More visible were the angels' tears, the broken blade or dead hand. Each warrior bore the title of Eralim and carried out the Primarch's wrath against those judged beyond salvation. They fulfilled a dark role akin to the destroyers of other legions, bringing cruel devastation where it was required. Among the lesser orders stood the High Host, sometimes called the Archaea or the Principati. These warriors bore the sorrowful duty of delivering the Primarch's ultimate sanction. Unlike their brothers in the Angels' Tears, they did not hide their faces as they unleashed weapons born of humanity's darkest nightmares, leaving murdered worlds in their wake. The command of Sanguinius's crimson hosts resembled the Principia Bellicosa in form, yet it bore its own distinctions. Authority was divided across the three spheres, each officer bound to the place given him by the Primarch. It was a strict and overlapping system, less flexible than some, but it created a firm line of responsibility that restrained the Legion's hunger and sudden rage. To guard against collapse in battle, the Blood Angels maintained many junior officers, lieutenants and sergeants ready to assume command if their superiors fell. On the field, authority was clear and absolute. Disobedience was a grave sin, punished harshly even when proven correct. The duty of the battle brother was simple. He obeyed. He acted. He placed the hunger aside while those above him bore the weight of consequence. All authority flowed from Sanguinius himself. From him it passed to the Lord Commanders, then to captains, and downward in an unbroken line. A sergeant's word carried the Primarch's voice. A captain's nod reflected the tilt of his head. This clarity kept the Legion centered. Their titles differed from other legions. Those who commanded hosts and stood above captains were called arcanes, bearing also the title of dominion when leading a company. Within a company, the junior officers were known as powers, who directed warriors in battle, and virtues, who served as exemplars in other pursuits. Some were named for their focus, archives of wisdom or powers of the blade, honors that reflected a legion encouraged to be more than mere weapons. By the final years of the Great Crusade, the Blood Angels stood among the foremost of the Imperial host. Under Sanguinius, the Legion had been transformed so completely that the old Revenant Legion was nearly forgotten. Once relegated to the rear guard, it now advanced at the forefront, braced in courts across the Emperor's domain. At any given time, the Legion numbered close to 120,000 warriors, organized into 300 companies. Only the vast forces of the Ultramarines and the Iron Warriors were said to surpass such strength. Their hosts were shaped for assault and orbital descent, rich in close quarters infantry and swift vehicles built for breakthrough and sudden strikes. Defensive assets were fewer, and without initiative they could be vulnerable. Yet during the height of the Great Crusade, such a reversal seemed distant. Their forces were scattered across the galaxy in separate hosts, while custodial garrisons held their principal bases on Baal, Pinopus, and Saiph. Baal was the greatest of these. Its second moon remained sacred to the native blood, while the barren world it orbited was reshaped by the mechanicum of the Forge World Anvilus at Sanguinius's invitation. There, in lands lethal to the unmodified, a manufacturing complex rose that rivaled smaller Forge worlds and supplied much of the Legion's needs. A standing guard, largely the Crimson Paladins, watched over it, and at least one company could often be found refitting. Canopus served as a lesser but vital center, producing vast quantities of shells and simple munitions. Troops bound for the front often paused there, finding brief rest before returning to war. Saiph was smaller still, a recruiting ground drawn from its endlessly warring tribes, guarded by only a single squad of Crimson Paladins. The Legion's fleet matched its martial strength. More than 300 capital-class warships bore its colors, many heavy cruisers and battleships. These vessels were prepared for orbital assault, mounting heavy linear cannon for bombardment, launch rails for swarms of drop pods, and expansive hangar bays for Stormbird and Thunderhawk craft. In void and on-world alike, the strength of the Ninth moved with purpose, unwavering while its Primarch endured. At first, it might seem strange that a legion so proud of its traditions would accept strictures written by another. Yet the Horus Heresy shook the Blood Angels to their core. When Horus was defeated upon Terra and Sanguinius fell, there was no clear successor. Factions formed quietly around different candidates, while the flaw began to press more heavily upon the Legion's future. It was Askelon, the sole survivor of the Sanguinary Guard, who carried their destiny forward. He understood that doctrine mattered less than survival. Under his will, the Legion was divided into the chapters that endure to this day. The Blood Angels kept the old heraldry and traditions, while the Flesh Terrors, the Angels Vermilion, the Angels Encarmine, and the Angels Sanguine took their own paths. What became of Ascalon after this turning point is unrecorded, yet his legacy remains in every one of those chapters. They followed the Codex Astartes as closely as their flaw allows. Discipline, they believe, can restrain the red thirst. Each chapter maintains a nominal strength of 1,000 battle brothers, divided into 10 companies of roughly 100 Space Marines apiece. The first company gathers the most experienced veterans, warriors steeped in solar decades, sometimes Terran centuries of constant war. The second through fifth companies form the backbone, the battle companies that carry the core of any strike force. Beyond them stand the reserve and training formations. The 6th and 7th reinforce battle lines when the burden grows heavy. The 8th and 9th are specialist formations, one devoted to assault, the other to devastation. These companies are narrower in scope and are called upon when a single-minded approach is required. The 10th company is different. It is the future of the chapter. Here the scouts learn the Space Marine way of war. They rarely fight as a whole, yet small squads are often attached to strike forces, valued for their skill and potential. A Blood Angel strike force is seldom drawn from one company alone. Squads are assembled as the mission demands, given code names such as Blood Spear, Liberator, or Primarch's Wrath. Even so, they are usually known by the company that forms their heart, or by the officer who leads them. Reinforcements from reserve companies may serve alongside them, becoming an 11th squad or more for as long as the campaign endures. Each company, save the 10th, maintains its own vehicles. Rhino and Razorback transports, bikes, land speeders, and more stand ready for whatever the field requires. Unusually, the Blood Angels command enough Land Raiders to use them as line transports rather than rare support. How they came to possess so many remains a mystery beyond the chapter's walls. Their rhinos often bear modified engines, tuned for greater speed, though such changes leave them prone to breakdown when pushed too far. Other machines have been altered as well. The Baal Predator mounts a twin-linked assault cannon, laying down a torrent of fire as the chapter advances. The Furisoa Dreadnought forgoes heavy ranged weapons in favor of a second close combat arm, embracing the brutal intimacy of war. In the closing years of the 41st millennium, the Blood Angels stood as a chapter of 10 companies, each led by a captain, guarded by elite veterans of his honor guard. Though every squad was assumed to number 10 battle brothers, attrition and the instability of the flaw often reduced those ranks. Alongside the companies marched the Death Company. It was not counted among the official formations. Its strength shifted with the onset of the Black Rage, and so it remained an auxiliary force, ever present, ever fixed. The chapter followed the Codex Astartes in most respects. Only the Sanguinary Guard and the Death Company stood apart from its standard structure. The first company was composed of veterans, hardened by countless wars and trained to wear the sacred and rare suits of Terminator armor. The 2nd through 5th bore the weight of most campaigns as battle companies. The 6th and 9th companies served in reserve. They reinforced the line and replaced losses. The 6th and 7th were entirely tactical Marines. The 8th was made of assault Marines, and the 9th carried a full complement of Devastators. The 10th Company gathered the Scouts, neophytes not yet risen to full battle brotherhood. All who succumbed to the Black Rage, even dreadnoughts, were drawn into the Death Company. In this way, the chapter endured, ordered yet shadowed by its curse. In the Era Indomitus, after reorganization and renewal, the First Company remained home to the most seasoned veterans, warriors shaped by solar decades and more of unbroken war. The chapter's heart still lay with its battle companies, the 2nd through 5th, which formed the core of every strike force. These companies typically fielded 6 Battleline Squads of intercessors or tactical Marines, supported by close support and fire support elements. Inceptors, Reavers, Assault Marines, Assault Centurions, and Bike Squads moved alongside them, while Hellblasters, Aggressors, Devastators, and Centurion Devastators delivered heavier fire. The 6th and 7th became battle line companies of 10 squads each. The 8th and 9th were shaped into specialist formations, one devoted to close support, the other to fire support. They were called upon when a focused and overwhelming approach was required. The 10th Company, still the chapter's future, grew larger in the wake of the devastation of Baal. Heavy recruitment followed that desperate campaign. Many successors within the Sanguinary Brotherhood did the same. Their losses were severe, and renewal became essential. The birth of the Great Rift and the arrival of Primaris reinforcements marked a new beginning. Great heroes had fallen, yet worthy successors rose to take their place. The order of battle endured, reshaped but unbroken. The rule of the Blood Angels rests with the chapter master and his council. After the birth of the Great Rift, Roboot Gilliman expanded their authority, appointing them as leading imperial figures within the Imperium Nihilus, that vast and storm-racked region beyond Terra's easy reach. Brother captains fill most seats at the high table, though some places belong to senior officers, too injured for continued war. These veterans oversee the armory, the fleet, and the recruitment of new neophytes. Should the chapter master fall or be absent on campaign, the council acts in his stead. Each officer carries a title and duty. Some names come from the Codex Astartes, such as Master of the Watch. Others arise from the chapter's own traditions, like Lord of Skyfall and Shield of Baal. Unlike many Codex chapters, the Blood Angels include the Sanguinary Priesthood, Apothecaries, and Reclusium within their command structure. The Sanguinary High Priest and the High Chaplain take joint temporary role if the chapter master dies. This custom was born in the 35th millennium when Captain Kala-El rose to mastery and succumbed almost at once to the Black Rage, plunging the chapter into crisis. Since then, caution guides succession. The High Chaplain and Sanguinary High Priest test the will and worthiness of any new candidate, guarding against another such tragedy. Blood Angels commanders rarely walk the battlefield alone. At their side stands the Honor Guard, seasoned veterans chosen for skill and resolve. at the bleeding edge, protecting their leaders while lending wisdom and strength. Each company is led by a captain, a warrior shaped by solar decades, sometimes Terran centuries of relentless war. His judgment is swift and precise, his authority broad, for companies often wage distant campaigns apart from the rest of the chapter. With such autonomy comes weighty burden. 2 lieutenants serve him. The first, known as the Warden of the Blood, is charged with assuming command should senior officers fall to the red thirst. The second, the Sword of Sanguinius, leads the most dangerous assaults, planting banners upon sacred ground and striking down key foes. Victory excuses savagery in this role. Failure does not. Company veterans stand close in council, rarely younger than 300 standard years. They choose their war gear freely, drawing from the chapter's armory according to their skill. Each company banner is treasured beyond measure, woven of Dura silk and chased with precious threads. These standards depict heroes, victories, or the angelic Primarch himself. They are borne by an ancient who has proven true heroism. To lose such a relic would be unforgivable, and so the ancient will gladly die to preserve it. Company champions seek out the enemy's greatest warriors, engaging them in swift and lethal duels. Their mantle is often decided during feast days through ritual combat, and once chosen, they defend their company's honor for a solar decade. Battleline Squads form the adamantium backbone of every strike force. They secure objectives, anchor defenses, and drive forward through enemy lines. In the era Indomitus, squads are organized as battle line, close support, and fire support, each led by a sergeant and often divided into combat squads for flexibility. Intercessor squads trace their origins to the work of Belisarius Cawl, who labored for thousands of Terran years beneath Mars after receiving Gilly Man's sealed command. When the Indomitus Crusade began, Primaris battle brothers emerged from cryo vaults and were formed into new chapters or integrated into existing ones. The Blood Angels welcomed them, especially after the devastation of Baal, seeing in them the mark of Sanguinius and renewed strength. Heavy intercessors wear thick Mark X Gravis armor and stand immovable upon captured ground, their heavy bolt rifles ready to repel counterattack. Tactical squads require mastery over inner rage and are trusted to adapt to shifting conditions, holding ground or advancing as needed. Infiltrator squads move unseen in Mark X Phobos armor, casting smoke and striking with disciplined bursts from marksman bolt carbines. Their Omni Scrambler disrupts enemy signals, ensuring communications fail. Some squads include Helix Adepts, who recover the gene seed of fallen brothers. Close support squads embody the Blood Angels' reputation for excellence in close combat. Chainswords roar and bolt weapons thunder as they overrun fortifications. Inceptor squads descend at incredible speed, sometimes amidst falling debris, striking before the foe understands what approaches. Assault squads, long a natural path after scout training, overwhelm enemies at close quarters, their jump packs blazing as they descend into battle fury. Assault intercessors advance with heavy bolt pistols and chainswords, while Reaver squads employ terror and ruthless violence when necessity demands. Though some see their methods as distasteful, they have proven effective since the Battle of Baal. Bike squads and outriders race ahead on raider pattern combat bikes, engines roaring across plains and ruins alike. Their machines are durable yet often pushed to extremes, repaired in the field when needed. Incursor squads storm defended positions with Oculus bolt carbines and Divinator-class auspexes guiding their strikes. Land speeders skim above the ground, anti-gravitic fields carrying them swiftly into position. They provide vital support when assault elements surge beyond slower fire support, often deciding the thin line between victory and defeat. Fire support squads embody the belief that overwhelming firepower can solve most problems. Aggressor squads advance in heavy Gravis armor, their Boltstorm gauntlets and grenade launchers unleashing devastation at close range. In cities or fortress corridors, they stride forward through storms of return fire. Hellblaster squads wield concentrated plasma, their volleys bright as an angry star. Variants of their incinerators allow for different ranges and impact. Even if one falls, his weapon is recovered and inscribed with his name before passing to another. Devastator squads provide long-range support, shifting weapon loads according to the needs of the field. Some prefer varied arms, others uniform firepower. Bolt guns in their ranks serve as spotters and covering fire. Eliminator squads haunt the shadows, striking high-value targets with precision. Suppressor squads descend by grav shoot or leap with jump packs, their accelerator autocannons forcing even hardened foes to seek cover. Eradicator squads close with enemy armor, Melta weapons reducing heavy plating to molten ruin. Desolation squads bring long-ranged missile fire, wielding superfrag or supercrack launchers, while their Castellan launchers rain guided bomblets from above. Infernus squads advance with pyroblasters in hand, providing close-ranged fire support through incandescent flame. When faced with vast hordes such as a Tyranid swarm or an assault of orc boys, they unleash gouts of promethium-fueled fire, purging the enemy in blazing wrath. Veterans of the Blood Angels are those who have endured solar decades of war and risen through every rank. Golden helms mark their status. Sternguard veterans are master marksmen, capable of impossible shots and armed with the finest weapons of the armory. Plasma guns and melta guns augment their firepower, guided by advanced auger systems. Vanguard veterans embody swift assault, often descending by jump pack to smash into enemy lines. Their red thirst is mastered, not feared. They also deploy from armored transports when required. Blade Guard veterans fight as noble knights of legend, relentless in melee, whether raised during the Ultima founding or having crossed the Rubicon Primaris. Veteran intercessors serve within the elite First Company, sometimes taking on assault roles as needed. Terminator squads don tactical dreadnought armor entrusted only to the most accomplished. It was such warriors who purged the Space Hulk sin of damnation. Assault Terminators favor lightning claws or thunder hammers and storm shields, embracing close combat fully. Among the Blood Angels stand formations not found elsewhere. The Death Company gathers those lost entirely to the Black Rage. Led by a sanguinary priest or chaplain, they fight as if already dead, wounds ignored in their frenzy. The Sanguinary Guard forms an elite honor guard of 30 veterans under Brother Sepharin. Clad in golden artificer armor and bearing glaive and carmine polearms, they soar on winged jump packs, second in prowess only to the captains and Lord Commander Dante. Honor guards accompany mighty officers, gold helmets marking their status. Within them may stand sanguinary priests, deck marines, and a nominated blood champion. The Death Storm strike force is formed when enemies vastly outnumber the chapter. Squadrons of Baal predators and a Land Raider Crusader unleash such torrents of fire that gun barrels glow white, shredding entire battalions. Death Company chaplains lead the doomed into battle, Crozius Arcanum swinging as they chant litanies of hatred and vengeance. The Heirloom, a choir of 5 chaplains, guard the hidden reclusium of Astorath the Grim upon Baal, their dark forms a mirror to the radiant Sanguinary Guard. Sanguinary priests tend the blood of Sanguinius and preserve gene seed, balancing sermons that embrace the red thirst against the somber watch of the chaplains. The reclusium rises high within the fortress monastery, banners and relics lining its sable halls. Within its sealed vault lie the scrolls of Sanguinius and the chronicles of the chapter's deeds, guarded in silence against the ages to come. Across 10,000 years of war, one truth has remained unchanged. The sons of Sanguinius are never free of their curse, yet neither are they wholly defined by it. The red thirst still stirs in quiet moments. The black rage still claims its toll. Each generation walks the edge of the same abyss that opened upon the deck of the vengeful spirit. They remember their father not only in statues of gold and marble, but in the discipline that binds their fury. They remember the choice he made when offered dominion over ruin. They remember that he knelt before them in the rain and gave loyalty before demanding it. In the long centuries since the heresy, the Blood Angels and their successors have bled upon 1,000 worlds. Some have fallen to excess. Some have walked so close to damnation that redemption seemed a thin and fragile hope. Yet again and again, they have chosen to stand. Lord Commander Dante bears that legacy as both honor and burden. In the lightless half of the galaxy, within Imperium Nihilus, he fights a war without horizon. Around him gather brothers of many heraldries, divided by chapter but united by blood. Each carries within his veins the echo of Sanguinius's final defiance. There is no promise that the flaw will ever be undone, no certainty that the black rage will fade into myth. The galaxy offers only endless war and the slow erosion of all things. Yet if fate is patient, so too are the Blood Angels. They were forged in the rad zones of Terra and tempered in the ashes of Baal. They rose from the name of Revenant and took upon themselves the mantle of angels. They have known glory, shame, betrayal, and apotheosis. They have stood at the eternity gate and upon the brink of extinction. And still, when the darkness gathers and the sky burns red, crimson armored warriors descend like falling stars. For as long as a single son of Sanguinius draws breath, the angel endures.